With me is Ireland's Trade Minister. So, welcome to WION. My first question to you is: how do you see India as a market, and what kind of dynamism you see between trading relationship between India and Ireland?
Well, first of all, can I say that we see India as a really dynamic and huge growth market. There are very few economies in the world that are growing at the pace that we're seeing here in India. And so from an Irish perspective, we're a globalized economy already. And I think you're likely to see a lot of dynamic young Irish companies choosing to come to India to build partnerships here, to build opportunities here. I hope also we're going to see more Indian companies come to Ireland as a gateway into the European Union, as we see trade between India and the EU grow significantly in the years ahead. And we are, as you know, working at the moment on an EU-India free trade agreement, which hopefully can be agreed at some point later this year, which can facilitate even more trade. But coming from a relatively small country in the European Union, but a country, by the way, that has a very similar history to India in terms of a colonial past, a struggle for independence, and now, of course, building a technology-based growth economy. We, I think, can partner in a very dynamic way. And the meetings I've had this week with some of the largest companies in India, working with dynamic Irish companies, providing solutions in areas like financial technology, in areas like cybersecurity, obviously a big industry around aviation, which Ireland is very much part of here. There are huge opportunities for growth. So today, we have an annual trade between India and Ireland that's worth about 10 billion euros per year. But we think that we can create a much, much bigger trade relationship in the years ahead.
So you mentioned about India EU FTA. How hopeful you are on that FTA, because it has been years since the negotiations have been happening. Now both sides, EU and India, go into election cycle. So any deadline and any challenges you look forward?
Well, look, I think we need to be pragmatic, and I think we need to be somewhat patient as well in the context of election cycles. I think most people will realize that compromises aren't easily found in the weeks before elections happen. So the European Union has European elections in June. There's an election cycle just beginning here as well, of course, in India. So look, as a trading country in Ireland, we want to see an FTA happen. But I think realistically, we're probably looking at the second half of the year being a more likely time for a breakthrough there rather than the first half.
So payment system, India's payment system, you must have seen that. How do you see it as an example of a cashless society?
Hugely impressive, I have to say. When I was walking through the streets of Mumbai, lots of street traders there, and I was talking to some of them, and it's a cashless society. Everybody is buying and selling using their mobile phones. Really impressive is what I'd say. We have a lot of companies in Ireland that are focused actually on payment systems, digital platforms for payment systems in terms of protections against fraud and so on. And this is an area where we'd like to work with India together. I think we can learn a lot from you, and I think you can also potentially learn from some of the successes that our companies have had. But it's an amazing digital transformation that we've seen. Even basic trading now on the streets is taking place on the back of secure digital platforms. Very impressive.
So my last question to you is, you met with the Indian External Affairs Minister. The key issues today are the conflicts, one happening in Europe, one happening in West Asia. What's your country's stance?
Oh, well, look, first of all, can I say I have huge time for your foreign minister. I know him. We've worked together on the UN Security Council. He's a very able operator and very respected internationally. So as you would expect, we had a good conversation in relation to the war in Gaza. We both want to see a ceasefire happen. We want to see a significant humanitarian aid effort getting to the civilian population of Gaza that desperately need that now. Ireland has been one of the most vocal European countries calling for a ceasefire. Of course, we have strongly condemned the terrorist attack that Hamas perpetrated on Israeli citizens on the 7th of October. That must be condemned. There is no excuse for it. But the war that has followed has taken an extraordinary toll. More than 30,000 people killed, many of them children and women. And really, we need to see an end to that sooner rather than later. And India is a powerful voice internationally, and I hope can play their role. On Ukraine, also an enormous human tragedy. You know, we're seeing Russian aggression, trying to change international borders by force in Europe right now, in Ukraine. Hundreds of thousands of people killed. Ireland and all countries in Europe are showing very strong solidarity with Ukraine as they try to protect themselves and the sovereignty and integrity of their own country. And what I would say is that this is not just a European war. The world needs to take note of what's happening. If the international community doesn't stand up to powerful countries that are trying to change international borders by force of arms, well then I think we're in a very dangerous place if that becomes a precedent that the world accepts. And that is why we've taken such a strong position to try to support Ukraine to defend themselves. And I hope that can be successful in time. And as well, India's voice is a powerful one in the context of that conflict, and I'm sure they'll use it.
Well, thank you so much, sir, for speaking to WION.